Hello and welcome to another MrBetaByte video. So today we have a rather lovely red Sony C20, and the problem with this is that the loading ring is broken. It's well and truly broken. So we're going to pull this apart and change it, and it really is quite a big job. So lots of fun, hours of fun. So let's crack on. So before you think this video is just suddenly skipped on to some weird tangent, this is actually the donor machine. There was quite a lot wrong with this. I think it was actually a C40 originally. Could be wrong, but yeah, it was quite a few different issues with it. I can't remember exactly what was wrong with it, but I've stripped off the loading ring. As you can see, you have to remove the audio head or the ACE head assembly, and also the guides, guide 2 and 3, and it's quite a big job. So I'll just come over and have a look at the bits. There's the top part of the assembly where the actual guides roll up, and then we've got the actual ring itself. Now you may notice that guide number 3, I think it is missing. And I actually used that to repair another machine where somebody had a fiddle and essentially broken it off. So I managed to get that fixed by replacing the guide, and actually broken this off somehow. So yeah, it's odd. But it also had to fit all the screws as well, so it was all very strange. So yeah, and that was actually on a Sony C9, I seem to remember. These are actually interchangeable with all of the 711 type decks, I think, even right up to the very last. So yeah, really cool. This is interesting because it's actually on like a ball joint, and obviously this lifts up as it goes round here. As the ring goes underneath, this actually becomes elevated on the top of the rail. So yeah, it's really very cool. And this is actually what's broken on the C20. I think all of this assembly here is broken. Now it's possible I might be able to push it in, but to be quite honest, I think I'm going to change it. I'm just going to change it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I've got this out. Yeah, so if I do swap it, obviously I'll have to change the guide over, so I can show that as well, how to do that, and sort of how to set it up. It's a bit fiddly, but it's not bad. But that's literally where the guide is screwed in. Uses 2 tiny screws. One of them is actually under tension. Spring, a little spring there, which sets up how far this comes up and how it will rest against the guide. So yeah, we'll have a look at that as well. So let's get the top off. So yeah, this is actually worse than I thought, actually. So you can see here I get 20 of it. The actual guide has popped out. It does move. It goes with it as it loads. But it is jamming up. This seems okay. Well, no, I mean, obviously it's out of sync as well because that is actually in the unloaded position. This is nowhere near. So let's wind it up a bit. So you can see the gear or the loading ring is moving and the guide isn't. And it looks like we're missing a guide on here as well. Yeah, see, that isn't very happy. Yeah, so this guide is missing, which is quite cool because I think the guide I'm missing on the other one is the other one. So let's have a look. So yeah, so I've got out of the two I can make one up, which is actually really very useful because I would have been a bit stuck otherwise, because I don't think I've got any more left now. Although I suppose I could have nicked one off an F30. I've got an old F30 chassis still, but yeah, so that's the problem. So I really need to get this in the unloaded position. Some very worrying clicks going on there. Notice there's a screw missing as well. I did actually take a quick look at this before I made this video, so I roughly knew what I was letting myself in for, obviously, because I got the loading ring out the other machine. So that's it, that's unloaded, and as you can see, yeah, not good. So I thought I'd just put up the service manual page for what we're actually going to be doing in this video. And basically it's this ring here, the S loading ring, that we're going to be swapping out. See here one of the guides as well, how that actually goes together, and its placement on the deck, so head drum is there, and yeah, it sort of just brings home just how big a job this actually is. It's a huge job to get this ring out and then put a new one in. So yeah, let's crack on. So to remove all of this assembly, we've got to take quite a bit off, and there's a bit of alignment as well to get this right. Once we've got it back together, so these have to come off. The full raise head has to come off, which is a screw, and then this guide here, and then the AC audio controller raise head has to come off as well and lifted out the way. Then we start undoing screws and everything will be fantastic. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is not very exciting, move this assembly. I think I'm going to go round the whole thing and just strip off all the bits I know need to come off. This is probably the second time I've done this. It was one of those things, well, in the 90s, by the time these machines were coming in with potential issues with the loading ring in the 90s, there was so much work involved that they weren't worth doing. People just didn't want to pay, so oh, that's been fiddled with. I do wonder how good this machine's going to be, you know. I think it's going to need quite a lot of alignment. Whoop. Sort that out. Too busy looking at the camera to notice that I'd reached the end of the thread. Just because I think it might be flickering, so I apologise if it's a very flickery sort of display. It shouldn't be. Those look to have been soldered at some point as well, so I might tidy those up. Oh yes, there is actually a little... Yeah, so what I'm going to do next, because there's the cabling's actually put through a little clip. Part of the cabling's put through a little clip under here, and when I take the AC head, it's just easier to get it out. So I don't think they've been fiddled with, even though the threads at the top look as if they might be doctored. Yeah. I think on the other one, I had the machine as I stripped this off. Actually just undid that screw. But I don't think you need to. Well, you don't, do you? So, try not to strain those wires too much. And good opportunity to get that head cleaned. It's not actually too bad, but I can see so there's some contamination, some on the guides as well, so get that all off. Now is there enough slack to get this off without? It should be. I'm just a bit wondering what's gone on with this machine, because somebody's been in here before. There we go. That's out. And yeah. Just like, why? So, next thing I'm going to do is undo this screw. You see there are two wires there. And those two wires go to the end of loading sequence. wind that on a little bit. End of loading sequence. Leaf switch. There we go, couldn't quite unhook that, and I might... It's a bit interesting, isn't it? Why is that bent? It's almost like it's got caught up. It's broken off the... How odd. And that's been scratching about quite a bit under there. I mean, obviously you get some marks. You can see here the marks from the good one, where guides 2 and 3 sort of slide underneath. This one, good grief, and it's bent the end. So I wonder what that's all about. Theories, please. So yeah, it's a bit, there's quite a lot of tape residue there, which I suppose we can clean off while it's all apart. Gonna get a bit more slack. So I don't need a huge amount, but obviously if I can avoid sort of tipping it about and messing about with boards to get a lot more slack, then that's a good thing, because obviously this is starting to get into a state where that might not be such a good idea. Now these do go in an order, all these screws, and I'll actually not be very kind to myself and put them in an order. But in my defence, I have actually, when I stripped the other machine down, I did actually put those screws in order. So yeah, I should have a fighting chance at getting this back together. So I'm totally worried by the fact that I've not got this in any particular position. Ta-da! So that all looks actually okay. This metal part should be I realise you're probably not seeing a huge amount of this. It's a bit of a struggle to get the camera in the right place and be able to do it. So a bit of plastic there, and that sort of hooks through that hole. So there we go. Then this plastic assembly here actually also holds cables around the back, so yeah, it's something to be wary of. Push it back because there's a little bit of plastic here that goes under the arm for the well, the whole of this assembly here, to be honest, but the tape load assembly. There's that bit. So put that there, and then that bit. Super. And then have to try and get this off. Now, I don't know whether it's going to be just a simple matter of lifting this off. What you have to do as well, like the old beaters, let me move this round, see if I can show you. Like the old sort of first gen beaters that had a loading ring that went the other way, there is a tensioning roller that keeps it sort of running in the rest of the rollers properly. And this is that same roller but on the 711B deck, and it's really tight. Which is not surprising. I have to get my super duper screwdriver. There we go. So, just to show you, that tensions the whole of the loading ring so it runs properly and is secure in the other rollers. But obviously you have to slap that off before it will come off and you can gain access. So let's put you like that. And see if we can lift this off now. Main spot, probably an issue. And that is, we have to remove this because the cable runs on over the top of the loading ring. It's no sweat, easy enough to align. Anything I'm slightly worried about, so I'm going to slack to get it past damaging the heads. Where are the heads? There we go, so I won't damage them. Lovely. Right, so I think now what I need to try and do is get this back to a unloaded position, because there is a rim that will stop it from coming out properly. So can I wiggle that free now? Oh, that's come off. That's good. Yeah, so that's one thing I forgot actually. This arm is actually holding it as well, so you need to clear that. It should just pop off. There we go. Just a little tab down here. Can't see it obviously, but it's right behind the cap stand. So it's just getting it past there. So there we go. So there it is in all its broken glory. You can see there the remains of a fitting. I really don't know what's happened there. That's really odd. and the guide is missing as well. Should go there. It's just odd. I do wonder if this machine is going to be any good, to be honest, because it's feeling very much like it's really trash. I'm going to take that actuator off as well and give it a clean. These can cause problems. They can get sort of a little bit seized on the little bit of plastic that they sit on, and that will cause problems with the switch not properly actuating at unload, and usually it's just down to a load of rubbish. As you can see, this has its fair share of that. But yeah, I'll give that a clean as well. So I'll put that down there. So the next thing, I suppose, now is to whip this off and put it on the other loading ring. Okay, so these are the two rings. This is the one I've just taken off the machine. This is the donor ring, and on the original ring you can actually see that there's a little bit of plastic off here. It's broken off, and that's allowed this little assembly here that actually moves up and down to break free, break out, and ultimately just foul that metal assembly, folding it round. So what I need to do now, as you see on this one, this guide is missing, and on this one, this guide is missing. So we need to move this over to here. There are two screws there. So this is always a bit interesting doing this. I think that bit is actually too big. So pH 000. So undo that screw first. Is that going to fit? Yeah, so that's going. I'm going to see if I can pick this up wholesale. And lift it over. There's a problem with working on the floor. There's a risk of a bit of fluff getting in, but it's not a problem on something like this, really. It's more of an annoyance than anything. With that round, so you've got a bit better chance of seeing, but you're probably not going to see an awful lot. Still don't think that's really the best bit for the job. Phillips 00. That just does not want to go in. Wonder if the bits have actually It's got a little bit too worn now. I use the screwdriver set so much. And, whoops. Screws this A1, that's fine. It's not like it's got anywhere much to go. What I'm trying to avoid is getting the screw in crooked, because it's only a very small amount of plastic. That might work a bit better. Now I think I'm going to have to get a new screwdriver set, because these bits are getting too worn. The edges are just gone now. Oh, that's working. So and then there's a bit of spring that needs to come round underneath. That tensions this. You see now that that's now springing back. There's, I don't know whether you can see this at all, but there's a little bit of black spring. And when you take these off, the spring will obviously flick round, and yeah, everything will seem okay until you put it back in the machine and find that the guides don't pop up properly. Quite magnetise the screwdriver. Just hoping I can get a couple of turns with this slightly dodgy maybe not. Let's get it in there and use the other screwdriver. Oh, it's quite sad that the screwdriver's sort of past its best now, because it's like I say, I've had this years, and I suppose we could get some high quality bits, but yeah. The other thing that's a bit tricky with this is it's a bit difficult to actually judge if you're anywhere near where the screw needs to go into, because the bits of metal are actually quite free moving, so you are sort of guessing. You don't want to push too hard. I think that's just bitten. You just need to almost just try and just persevere. I think that is in. I have to say, the screw head doesn't look that wonderful anyway. Maybe I'm blaming my screwdrivers, and that's not the case. have to say that that bit is not really actually a bit anymore. I am really struggling with screwdrivers tonight. I think yeah, I don't know how I feel about using that screw now because the head's not that wonderful. I think I've done that. I'm just very carefully putting a little bit more weight on it just to get it in properly, which it isn't really. Last thing you want to do is strip it. Oh, that's tight. Now I think that's now okay. I will clean these while they're out as well. Basically, once these are in, you can adjust them using that screw, and that varies the amount on this amount of pressure the spring puts on the base of the guide. So obviously as the guides come rolling round, as it sort of loads, so it goes round, comes out of the little metal cover, one goes up, and then this gets lifted up like so. So that would be the loaded position with this at the back of the deck. Then this will go into the one guide, this will go into the other guide, and that's it. But you can adjust this in the deck, obviously. I mean, it'd be silly if you couldn't really, but you can adjust it in the deck. So that's what I'm going to do, and order me some new bits, I think, or even a new screwdriver set. So let's get this put back together. So we want to get it somewhere near in the unload position, I believe. So it can comfortably sit over the gear. I'm going to have to take this off anyway and give it a service as well, but that will allow me to properly line this up. So I've got to get it past everything, sitting properly in the grooves. There's actually a little clip that this has got to go past. Just by pressing the lever that this is on from here, so you've got the leverage on it, it's enough to get it past and into the groove of the, because there's a roller there, so that's fine. So that's in. The gear's meshing. So there is every risk that I have actually lined it up pretty well. Every risk that I'm doing this completely wrong. So I'm certainly not a seasoned expert at doing this. I'm pushing that when I should be pulling it. I'm too busy sort of worrying about where things go to concentrate on where things actually need to, which direction the thing needs to go. Now that, I think, has to go under there. I mean, I know this all looks very flimsy, and I suppose it is, but the fact that I've never had to change one of these before is sort of testament to the fact that they are actually really very reliable. I'm just going to get a light actually and have a look, because I can't remember which way that goes. Sits on the top. There we go, top tip. In some ways, and I might end up doing this, it might be easier to actually have done this with it further along, like laced, partially laced. Right, so I'm going to put the screw in. I could almost do with watching my earlier bits of video, just to make sure I am doing this right. So let's just get that in, put it in loosely, because we have to push this bit down, and clips on around here, which you probably can't see because the gear's in the way, but I can just about see. So that's in. Right, so now it's a case of putting the rails back in. I'm going to put the rails from the other machine, the donor machine, so things are clipping back into place, but I've worked on these things long enough to know that that's probably not going to be the case. Just moving those cables out the way. Just move the loading switch cable out of the way as well, so we don't foul that. Now I think there's a little bit of plastic that needs to go the other side of the arm here. There's a little bit of plastic that sort of juts out just below here, and that needs to go behind. And well, that's sort of right. So let's get a screw in. They're little plastic pegs as well that need to just line up with the holes in the metal chassis and just clip in. So I did clean the little loading cam as well. Next thing, which again you probably can't see too well, but I'm just tensioning up or retensioning the ring stop, and that has to be really tight. There's no real play in that, so that's good. So now this one. Slightly concerned that I must be knocking ahead because that's moving, and I don't actually know if the heads are any good. So A, I could be completely doing this all in vain, and B, I might be damaging them by being overly clumsy. Just needs to come a bit further around. There we go. And it's sort of it's sort of found its own way, to be honest. It's clipped in there nicely. So the next thing now is the metal bit. Which I seem to remember is actually a bit tricky to do because it goes underneath. I don't know. It's a bit of an odd thing. But when I'm putting this back together, I just get this feeling, blimey, does that guide really go that far around? And yeah, it does. It just looks odd because the front raise head is missing. So I do need to sort out these cables. So I need to sort of move the camera now. So I'm just going to tidy up the cables here, which again you can't quite see, but they're fouling the back of the plastic and it's causing this to not sit properly. So I'm going to move the camera so I can get in there to do that. Just check everything else is okay, and then we'll continue to put it together. So I've put the full raise head on, and that goes on with the head goes on first, then the spring, then the actual tape guide section, then the top section, and obviously this will have to be aligned back up. But it occurred to me that really, to do this properly, you have to take this off. It probably would have made a lot more sense to have taken this all off and moved it out of the way, put the loading ring, the S-ring on, and basically put it in a position where it's not sort of being compromised by the guides trying to rise up. So we'll take that off now. And I'm struggling slightly because the camera is so close, but it makes for far more entertaining video that I can't actually get to anything. Oh. Let's get a better bit. There we go. I'm trying to use the wrong bit. No wonder my bits are falling apart. Because they do get damaged if you don't use them. Use the right bit for the right screw. So and then this one. And again, I'm trying to give you a view. I'm not doing the best job. There we go. Lift this out. Oh, actually, sort of purpley, bluey type resistor on that. I've seen one of those on these before. So I don't know whether you can see that the insulating plastic that's below the motor, that was actually fouling the can. But the other thing that slightly concerns me is why that isn't locking. Because it needs to go in such a way that the top bit of metal goes over the plastic, and then the tab locks it. I think I might have had a similar thing on a previous video that I did, where the tab just refused to properly lock. That is now, I think, no, it's not locked. I wonder if there's a problem with the actual locking tab on that. It's been ripped off. I think it might have been. Yeah, it has been. Well, that is actually a bit of an issue, because that will never lock down properly. So obviously when that assembly is broken, for whatever reason, it's actually taken off the tab. So I have to make a decision on what I'm going to do about that. Probably what I'll use is some owl dies and just glue it. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? I think this should wind lace. Yeah, that's lacing fine. I say that. Oh no, it is. It was just being a little bit stubborn. I was slightly worried that maybe there was something. Oh, there is something. There's something not right with the loading. This looks as if it's all been fiddled with. I have another one of these little units here as well, so I might change that because I think there's something wrong with the actual gear. You probably have a better view of that than I do. But there's definitely like a resistance midway. Yes, I can see what it is actually. It's actually the way I've put the one guide on. Or is it? Which guide did I put on? Because the guide I put on is fine. Okay, so I'm just looking at this first guide, and this guide is not right. And looking at the screws on it, someone's been fiddling. So I just wonder what on earth has gone on. And somebody's had a really good go at this deck and pretty much broken everything. It's almost like spring, isn't it? Oh, it does. Yeah, it is working. And the other thing about it is, of course, there is a part of the assembly missing, is there? Let's just try this again. So that comes out of there. Yeah, that shouldn't be coming up. Yeah, so it comes around there and then it leaves the top section of this. So let's try that just to prove that this isn't actually as butchered as I thought it was. Little tabs missing as well. Oh dear. What I do with that is, when I've noticed tabs are missing, is two things you can do. Is put a little tiny bit of metal, so melt a bit of metal in, but the chances are it won't be a very good job. Or I just glue it down, which I don't really like doing. Yeah, that's fine, because this actually stops the guide coming up too high and fouling the ring as it comes up. But obviously you want it to take up the tape, so obviously played with that too much. Yeah, that in itself's a bit odd. Oh, well, that's another guide set up. I have to say that these guides, I have had quite a few where they are loose. They just work loose over time, which is great fun because it causes all sorts of problems, obviously, but it's quite pivotal to the way the tape enters the tape path to the drum. But good grief. It's quite an exciting machine, this, isn't it? So, well, I'm going to at least just park this on here. I'm not going to do much more than that because I want to get that metal shield put down correctly. Although, one thing I have just thought about, this cable here that goes to the end micro switch needs to go in that little clip there, just so it doesn't foul anything. Last thing you want. So I'm going to put that there. To be fair, I can get to everything, so I'm fairly happy. And I think I'm just going to use super glue on that. Let's see if I can adjust it. Adjust the camera so you can see. There we go. So I think I'm just going to put a bit of super glue on this. The tab's missing. And just hope that it does the job. This is not a huge amount of force there, but obviously it does need to be down, so things work as they should. Well, here goes nothing. Oh, I don't really want that there. I'm sure it'll be fine. And the only thing is to put glue on it, but I don't actually know if I've actually put glue in the right places. Because there's actually a very small surface area to where it can actually bond. And hopefully I'm not gluing my finger to it. It won't be the first time. So I've never come across a problem with the S-ring. So yeah, it's a bit different. And just glad to be able to sort of record it and get it on YouTube, because it's fun, and it probably will put lots of people off. But if you've got a good deck, then it's not so bad. I mean, I've had a few problems with this. Obviously, the part I had as well was needed that one guide replaced, and yeah, so that's looking pretty solid. Oh no, I can see it moving. I'm trying to move. Yeah, it is a bit of a problem because of course the metal wants to come off, and it's slightly distorted. It might have been an idea if I sort of just loosened it off and sort of bent that this part in further, but then that probably would have caused problems in its own right. And it's pretty straight, to be fair, but I think it's just literally because of the forces against it. It's trying to pull away. No clip there, so it will just pull away and pop off. It's glued. It's finally glued. The super glue, it just didn't work, but I used some Aldite, which I mixed up and didn't set, so had to do it again, and it is now set and it is now working as Aldite should, gluing that portion back on, hopefully to make it work. I have actually run the S-ring, and it does seem to be absolutely fine. No sort of real issues at all. So I suppose the next thing is to put it all back together and test it. Now, I've not actually powered this machine on. I've literally just taken it apart, had a look at it, and thought, oh, okay, we've got problems. So get that sorted first, and then we'll deal with the rest later. Mainly because I do have spares, so even if the power supply is completely shot, I have another power supply. And obviously I'll change all the caps that cause problems from cold as well. And as I said previously, I just hope that the heads are okay on this. I did tap one of the head chips, putting the inner plastic rail, but well, that's life, isn't it? It's I did my best, and it's sort of not something I've done a lot of, as I've said before. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, so let's crack on. Here's the difference between the one that's taken out and the serviced one. And this is literally a good clean up, and some very gentle silicone grease greasing going on just to get these working nice and smoothly. It does make a difference, not a huge difference, but it does make a difference. Another common problem on these is underneath here there's two planet gears basically, and basically what they do is they switch with the aid of the arm between loading the tape around the heads into the tape path and the front loading system. And you can probably see, well, maybe you can't, but this is actually quite stiff, and what happens is the grease under here on those two small gears and the centre gear starts to harden. So once it gets to a certain hardness, especially as this plastic's getting older, it will cause it to crack. So we're just going to very gently lubricate this. So I've just flicked off the little thing, and it actually doesn't feel too bad with that off. So just turning the centre shaft, you can turn the gears, just about make that out. So I'm just going to shield everything else and just put a tiny spot, if I can, of silicone grease, and then pop that back on. If I hold that gear, just run it in a bit. Yeah, it's starting to feel a lot better already. Oh yeah, that's freeing up now. Yeah, there's almost a little bit of run on there now. Obviously that's going straight down to the motor, so yes, but that's a lot better. And it'll just stop it getting noisy. I mean, if you're getting noisy loading, the chances are probably the gear, the centre gear, plastic gear that fits onto the metal shaft from the motor, is split, and yeah, you're in a bit of trouble then. And there are sort of ways you can bodge it and fix it and whatever, but it's not ideal. So that's working. The other thing that does go is not so much on C20s and 30s for some reason, but the HF100 uses a very similar system to this, and this gear will develop a crack, and that will give you like a bit of a knocking sort of sound to start off with when it starts to crack, as it loads and unloads the tape, especially when it loads, because there's more torque there required. And in the end, it'll end up with the metal shaft here spinning in the centre of this plastic gear. And the only way you can do that is to replace the whole thing, ideally. But you can actually get model gears. I've got one handy, but they're on eBay. They're readily available and cheap as well. Come in packs of 100. There we go. Found them. These gears, and a pack of 50. I think it was under a fiver. Under £5 UK. And you can just glue one of those on with Araldite. I think it needs a little bit of messing about with as well, maybe to make the hole a bit bigger. I can't remember now. I've been in a lucky position where I actually did have some new ones of these, so I've been using those. But that will work. So yeah, there are ways around these things, and those gears can also be used on C9, the front loading system gears, which I've done another video on elsewhere. So check that out if you're having problems with that on the C9. But yeah, that should be all now good to go back into the machine, just minding a bit of plastic, protective plastic for the motor, and no alignment necessary as such. Sometimes you need to give it a little wiggle just so the gears go down. Oh, that's fouling slightly the solenoid. It's a cable actually that's fouling it. There we go. Doesn't quite feel as if that's sitting properly. It's certainly driving the gears fine. I don't know, it just feels like it's not quite sat properly. Apparently it is. So yeah, it seems alright actually. I haven't quite located it properly. Let's find the other screw for the motor assembly. Oh. Well, that's located that. I think that's probably what was happening actually. I hadn't quite gone in where it needed to. So I totally tightened up the screw, so that's fine. And then we need to put on this assembly, and of course it's come apart, which is always good fun. So that's on properly, and let's get the base of the spring on. That needs to go. There's a bit of plastic, which this spring pulls on. So she's gone a bit far up. There we go. And the bit of plastic needs to go over the top of the fixing expanding rod on the solenoid, so it can pull this lever to the right position depending on whether it's loading a tape or the front loading system, or loading it around the heads, the tape path. And belts come out of its, of course, it would. Putting it about this much, it's going to come out. You can actually pull off this top bit to aid getting the belt on if you're having real problems, but I tend not to like doing it because there's 3 little tabs that hold this on, and those tabs are notorious for breaking. Again, old plastic now. So there we go, it's all back together. I put that new assembly that I showed you a couple of minutes ago in there as well. So I will recondition the old one and give it a good. I'll probably take this one apart and clean it right up. But somebody's been in there with a screwdriver hacking about, and there's a few signs down there. There's been a screwdriver sort of skating about in there for whatever reason. Yeah, it's all good. So it's all back together, and I have tested it, and I tested it off camera. And the results were that the tape would go in, and the motor was still trying to load the tape, and then it would just cut out. And it turns out that something is wrong here. This has dropped down, and of course the loading switch is here. So if I press this down, or pressed on the tape when it was in, it would load, it was absolutely fine, and then it would unload as well. But obviously something's happened here. I'm hoping it's just somebody's had a go and not put the screws back in. But the other thing that can happen is the screw posts that fix onto the bottom of the chassis can actually go bad. They crack, break off the metal. They're only plastic. And I think that might be what the problem is. Also, the Hall effect's gone as well. There's no head spin. So I won't be putting that on camera because I've done other videos on that. So just check those out if you want to know about the Hall effect sensor and how to change it. But yeah, it loads, it's fine, it's happy. It's just literally it can't do anything because of the head's not rotating and the fact that this real assembly is completely like free from where it should be. It's all opened up, and interesting sort of revelations. The whole effect looks absolutely awful. I don't think I've ever seen one that bad. And the bottom of the reel assembly, that's obviously broken. There's also a screw missing. So somebody's had a good old go at trying to repair this and failed terribly. There's also a screw missing there. So this is hanging on for dear life. Yeah, that's not very good. The other thing that I've found enough screws, so hopefully we'll be able to get this fixed as it should be. But while it's all upside down and all the screws are out, let's take a look at it. So that's actually looking pretty good. Common problems are the motor. This top section, which has the magnets, the bearing can go and it will start dragging on the coils. You can put spacers in, but it's a bit hit and miss whether you'll actually get it to work properly. And it can, once you get this working smoothly, it can cause problems with the pendulum idler. Also, the pendulum idler, this section here can start to get bent with age and heat. It's quite common when they've been stuck in an attic hot attic, or an attic that gets hot and then cold, and this, and in common with a lot of the other plastics, will start distorting, cracking, and whatever. These will bend and cause all sorts of problems. This looks good. This actually looks really good. The only thing that I'm slightly concerned about is why somebody was fiddling about and why they took the screws out and didn't bother to put it back together. But I'm guessing it's all part and parcel of the issues with the loading. They more than likely just were messing about, basically trying to get it going. So obviously I have to do the Hall effect sensor, which looks absolutely terrible. I don't know what's happened to that. Yeah, just really terrible. So I'll do that. Obviously I've done that in another video as well, so have a look at that if you want to know how to change it with a genuine Sony one. I will do a video on a compatible Hall effect sensor, because obviously the Sony ones are becoming quite difficult to come by. There are some available on eBay, but how long they'll last, and yes, it's just one of those things that modern devices will do the trick. I've seen it done in a 950, and I just need to really do some experiments with the various Hall effect sensors that I have to try and see if they do the trick, and it will be a lot cheaper than trying to get the Sony ones. I mean, typically I'm sort of paying for the compatibles sort of a few quid rather than 15 quid off eBay, so that'll be quite a nice thing to do, but that'll be in a future video. So I'm going to get this back together, put all the screws in, and we'll take it from there. Let's try tape. I mean, obviously we're not going to be able to play it or anything because the heads are still not going to spin. Turn it on, it does help. Nothing. Have I missed something? That's worse than it was before. Oh, I know why. Because I'm not giving it enough juice. Maybe. That's 240 now. There we go. It does actually really need so at least 200 volts. Yeah, so that's going to work. Yeah, that's not so clever. I do wonder if that was the... Yeah, so I think we've still got a micro switch problem. That pause is a mechanical issue with one of the switches. and it could well be to do with the switch that's down there. Isn't quite aligned as it should be. It's at the same place. And the loading ring is tight enough, so the S ring yeah, okay. So I think we're looking at switches as well, possibly being dodgy. My money's on this one that isn't quite probably adjusted as it should be. Maybe faulty, which is fine because we've got new replacement switches. So we might replace that. This one seems fine because it's getting to the end of the threading fine. Obviously no head rotation, so Hall effect to be done. And yeah, let's crack on. So the Hall effect has changed, that's all good, but I have actually tested it, and I am deliberately holding the phone or the camera, sorry, in such a way that can you spot what's wrong? It isn't working. It's almost like the solenoid is sticking or stuck. When you push a tape in, it just goes down, and this doesn't flick over to allow it to lace the tape. And if you look, it looks like one of the bits of plastic that holds the something under there, it's probably one of the screws, which I've probably missed, to be honest, if that broke off, has come adrift, and it's fouling the mechanism here. There is a little rod here that should be on this side of this assembly, and this assembly links directly, you can see it moving, to the solenoid. So yeah, turn it over and have a look and see what we can do. Oh, there we go. You can see what's happened. This is actually broken off the chassis. Should go there. And there's actually a little locating little lug as well, so I know that's correct. Try and get a bit of a better angle on that for you. So something like that. It does click in. So what I'll do is I'll use our old friend super glue and get that glued in and put it back together, and hopefully we should have a lacing machine and a working machine. So just waiting for the super glue to dry. You can see I've put maybe a little bit too much there, but this is greased, so I shouldn't get any problems with the glue getting underneath that section. As long as I make sure it's fully dry, it'll be fine. Quite a few cracks actually. So I've used Gorilla Glue gel, and that should any sort of gaps that might be there. I'm just going to move that a little bit so it binds a bit better. We'll seal it up quite nicely. There's one there as well. See the crack? So fingers crossed that'll work. Well, it does. I've done it before, and it does work actually really well. It just bridges the gap so nicely, but it takes an age to dry because obviously you haven't got the exposure to air and moisture, and then the lack of air contact, which is how super glue sort of works best. But I did actually repair some plastic on the back of this that was cracked, left it overnight, and it's really, really solid. It was actually a bit of plastic that was cracked on the back of one of the spools. Probably can show you, to be fair. So, so yeah, there's some cracking here, and it wasn't really causing any issues as is, but as it gets worse, what it would do is it would cause the shaft for the spool to actually become loose and free, and that will cause all sorts of issues with winding, rewinding. It will almost feel as if there's a problem with the motor when there actually isn't. It's the spools floating about. And again, I've done that a few times on C20s, and C30s seem to be the only ones that I've had the issue with. The 40s seem okay. For whatever reason, luck I suppose. So hopefully we should be all good. The rest of the standoff seems fine. So I'm going to leave this now and do this for a few hours and then screw it all back together. Just make sure that everything is still moving as it should. Because like I said, I got a bit close there with the glue. So we'll see how it goes. Glue's all set, and I didn't glue the moving section here, which is good. It's not even gone particularly white, which is good. So a little bit there, but yeah, that's all good. So time to put this back together. So dropped the unit back in, put the screws in. No issues at all, really good. So this arm here was slightly bent as well, so I've bent that back and checked it's true before dropping this down and screwing it down. So yeah, put it back together and we'll give it a test. Moments of truth. So let's give it a go. Oh, that's looking good. This tape is awful, so it's going to sound really rough, but it's good for just testing. It doesn't matter if it gets damaged. Ooh, that does sound quite rough though. That's probably down to the fact that I haven't adjusted the AC head yet, so it's probably not running very well. So yeah, I think I need to sort that out. So it's actually the this guide here. Just take this off a little bit. Whoops. That's looking good. So obviously I'll align it properly, but that's enough just to get it sort of working, and yeah, we can test it from there then. We know we're not sort of damaging tapes when we're testing it, and damaging the test tape as well, which would be terrible because they're almost impossible to get hold of now without spending silly money. So that's really good. I think it's about time I clean the pinch roller. This is not a happy pinch roller. So I'll clean that and we'll give it a try. Put a tape in it, and it does play. It does try and play. It's a bit all over the place, but obviously the pinch roller needs to be cleaned, so we'll do that and then continue from there. So even though this pinch roller is a little bit not new, You can sort of see there's marks on there from where the mould has been. Pretty much as long as the bearings are good, you'll be fine. So as long as it runs for a good time after you flick it, that should be fine. It doesn't matter that it's got sort of little bobbles, and as long as it's fairly smooth, it should be good. So let's put the pinch roller back on. And a little retaining clip. Oops, not so easy to do one-handed. Oh. It's literally, if you just press the clip on with your thumb, pushes into your thumb a little bit, but it just clips back in. So that's it there. So we're still powered on. So let's try this tape. Like I say, this isn't the best tape. So yeah, it's all looking a bit watery and horrible and not the best. Obviously there's some dragging going on there. Oh, let's try. Yeah, it seems quite tight. Oh, to be fair, this... Oh, I know what's happened. I bet I know what's happened. My guess is the rod down here isn't in the right place. Maybe. I don't know. That does actually look correct. Just seems awfully tight. Let me get another tape. Okay, so let's try this tape. And the other thing that sort of makes me think that maybe it's not quite right is oh, that doesn't sound good. It's running true enough. It's not bad. Tiny bit of alignment needed there. There's a bit of creaking going on, which is always a bit... yeah, that has far too much back tension, so I think there must be something wrong with where that assembly is going through. So I'll have to have a look at that, and try and work out. I mean, this just seems terribly tight. If I pull that back, that's fine, but yeah, I mean, it's just cut out. It didn't like that at all. So there must be something wrong with the way the that one piece of plastic is it's probably the wrong side of the metal slider. So the fact that it's doing that isn't good either. So interesting. Took it all apart, and I've released the spring slightly from the back tension arm. I didn't record it. I wish I had, because that would have helped if you're trying to diagnose these problems. But literally, there's a spring that tensions up the arm that goes to another assembly that moves with that sliding assembly. The one I thought I glued. Might have glued. So yeah, just backed that off, just brought it down one step, and suddenly everything was working much better. Had to do a bit of alignment as well, just to get it a bit more accurate. This guide here, and this one as well, obviously, because I stripped this all out to change the S-ring. This was actually sort of compressing the tape from the top, so I've just loosened that off. I will need to do a full alignment, but it's really not bad. And
you can do that later. I think tea is a bit common from Miss Clark's taste.
The sound is really, really good as well, and very pleased with the results. The still's not bad either for a two-head. Let's try forward. Ooh, that sounds horrible. And reverse. Ooh, it's riding over the it is actually riding over the pinch roller, so everything I said about the pinch roller, ignore me. Because this pinch roller is actually too far gone. Yeah. That's too far gone to be any good. So no problem, I've got a better pinch roller, I can put that on and that will sort it. But other than that, this machine is now good to go. I say good to go. What it needs is the capacitors here changed, and I will do some others as well. And there's two actually behind here which I change, but these two are the main two that can cause problems from cold with distorted playback. Being a C20, no remote control, so these buttons are critical to making this machine work. So all of those buttons will be changed. I just put standard buttons on, micro buttons on for those, and obviously a good clean up as well, get that display nice and bright, and that's it. That should pretty much be it. Obviously I had the new Hall effect, and obviously it will need the tape alignment completed, and the guide here tightened, which you do with a screwdriver blade in one part of the flat, and then an Allen key, just tighten it up, holding making sure this doesn't move once you're happy that it's aligned. So it's nice and tight and it won't drift. The C20 3040s don't suffer from it so much, but the HF950, for some reason, they're terrible for these actually shifting, even though the Allen screw is tight in the middle. Don't know why that is, but they are notoriously bad for doing that. Really annoying. So we'll do that, and that's it. So thank you very much for watching this video, and that's playing pretty good, but it does need finishing off. So if you like this video, please think about subscribing. That'd be absolutely wonderful, and give me a like as well. That's always good, and I'll see you in another video.